All right, let's see. We're going to do some work in Access today. There we go. All right, boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's going. Let's go. All right, good. So here's what we're going to do today. We started talking about the relational model last time, and today we're going to take what we've learned and apply it to building an Access database. So the good thing about Access is it's very visual, and to sort of convert designs and put them into Access. It's sort of intuitive how it works. Just to review a little bit, we talked last time about having a student table or a student list, and then we had a courses. So we want to sign students up for courses, right? And then we have in here we have a student ID that it uniquely identifies every student, and over here we have a course ID that uniquely identifies every course we have available. And these are primary keys, right? Primary key is the field that uniquely identifies a row or record in a table. Then we found out we had relationship issues with that, so what we did in the middle here was we created a schedule table, and we put the student ID in here, and we also put the course ID in here, and we decided that the combination of these two would be unique. So in other words, a student couldn't take a course twice. And we don't have the student's name or their GPA or their major in the schedule table because we can use the student ID number and go back over here and look up all that rest of that information, all the student information that's in the student table. And the same with the course ID. No need to put in the professor and the and anything else, any of that other information. We just go back and look it up in the course table. So, we have access to, what department it's in and so on and so forth. So that's part of how we went through the design using the relational model. Now, what I want to do is go into Access and actually create a database. So, let's get cranking on that. All right, so first thing I do is when I open up Access, and this is Access 2013. So if you have a different version of Access, it may look a little different than this, but the same basic functions should apply. All I did was I opened this up and I wanted to create a new database. So I'm going to, create a blank desktop database. All right, so it goes over here and, well, didn't do that. I didn't really want that to happen. Let me back up and do this again. Programs, Office, Access. There, all right. Let me change the location. I'm going to put this on my thumb drive. And I'm just, database 2 is fine. All right, so, and it creates it. Now what happens here is when Access creates this, you notice it saves it first, and you might be saying to yourself, we didn't do anything yet. Why is it saving? What do we have to save? What basically it's doing is creating this container file where we can put things in it. We can put tables in and queries and reports and forms and all that stuff. And when you did that first Access workbench exercise, this is how it all worked out. So what I would do is now I want to incorporate tables. So a table is a list, just like we had in our example over here. We have 3 tables here, and each table is a list of bits of data about someone or something. So to modify this, I want to go and I'm going to change, let's see, I want to change this table name. So when I change, let me back up. When I open up a blank database, I'm sitting right here. I have a table in front of me. There's really no fields in it. And then I want to change the view to design view to basically build the table the way I want. So I'm going to call this a student table. All right, and then I'll save it, and that saves it in the container file that I have. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come up with some fields that work for us, and then I'm going to jump ahead to a database that I already built that has data in it and all that sort of stuff. So I'll go through putting together one table, and then I'll close this database and open up one that's more complete so we can just sort of see how it looks in the long run. All right, so my first field, and typically what I would do is put in the primary key field first. All right, student ID number and the data type. And here are the data types we have. We have short text, long text. If you have an older version of Access, you might have just text. That's okay. Numbers, date, time, currency. So yes, currency is a number, but it has all the formatting already loaded into it. So if you're doing a database with money, then all that stuff is already set up for you. Auto number is in case you need a value in there for a primary key. What it does is it puts the first record you insert in there, puts a 1 in, second record a 2. You can't change it, you can't modify it, you can't do anything. So, but that's just an easy way of creating a unique value for a particular field. We have a yes, no. Excuse me. Yes, no. When you see a yes, no field on a form, what do you think what's that look like? Yeah, how would you say, if you had a field that says, you're a U.S. citizen, what would you see right at the end of that? How else could you do it? Graphically, visually, rather than typing letters in. Checkbox, right? Checkbox. So if it's checked, yes. If it's not checked, no.
Is anybody returning any keys by chance?
Yeah.
Keys to a Hyundai.
If you go down here to the office manager, Dina is her name. I think she has them.
Okay, thank you.
So checkbox is, are you a U.S. citizen? Check. Or if you're not a U.S. citizen, uncheck. So it's a nice, easy way to do it. And you don't have to, if you have them type in Y or N, and what if they type in Q? What does that mean? Does it mean no unless it says yes, or is it yes unless it says no? But if you put a checkbox in, the error checking takes care of itself. See what I'm saying there? And OLE object is things like I can have an Excel spreadsheet or chart in there. I can have a hyperlink, some attachments, calculated fields, and a lookup wizard. Oddly enough, this data type field is a lookup wizard. So I have all these different possibilities. Lookup wizard limits you to selecting from a list, right? So that this here. So my student ID is going to be a short text. Now, as soon as I select my field data type, it brings up a list of field properties down at the bottom. Now, for a text field, one of them is the field size. So it needs to know what's the maximum amount of space I need to reserve for this field. Oh, excuse me. So your student ID number, how many digits and characters is that? It starts with U, and then how many numbers is it after that? Do you know?
8 numbers.
8 numbers and a U? So 9 total. All right, so we'll make this one 9. Now, so the field size is 9. So it means everybody's U number is going to be the same size as far as number of characters. Then the next two, format and input mask, kind of go together. Format specifies what is the format going to look like when this thing appears on the screen. So what is the output going to look like? So if you had things like a telephone number has a specific output. A date has a specific output format that you want to stick to. The input mask is basically what do you want it to look like when you're doing the data input. So have you ever looked at filled out a form online and you get to the phone number and it's already got the brackets and the dash in there and you just type in the numbers? Well, that's an input mask where you don't have to put in the brackets and the dashes and all that stuff. It does it automatically.
So that's different than the format?
Format is for output. The input mask is when you're inputting data.
Okay.
So they kind of go together. They're just... All right, next one, caption. Caption is a label that will appear on the screen or on a report or wherever if you specify it. So in my field names, and this is just my own preference, my field names, I tend not to put spaces in the field names, even though Access will let you do it. There are instances where it can complicate things a little bit if you put a space in a field name. So I just don't. If the field name is like first name, what I do is capitalize the F in first, capitalize the N in name, jam it all together, and it's surprisingly readable. And here's why. Because my caption, I can create a label that says what the field is. So in my caption, I can say student space ID. So this is the label that will show up on that field when this field is displayed anywhere in the system.
Like on the forms?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it actually being, so I can name that student number on caption, and on the form, the user sees student number instead of student ID?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Call it, name it after your dog if you want to, as long as it's meaningful. But, anyway, that's the label that's for that field. Next one is the default value. Most, this is in case you have a field that, all right, I'll give you a default value. Remember the example about the U.S. citizen?
Yeah.
If most of your applicants are going to be U.S. citizens, maybe that checkbox is already checked. Right? They can uncheck it if they want to, but since you've decided that since most people already are U.S. citizens who are going to apply to our university here, so since they are, we're going to put a default value of having it already checked. So it just makes the input a little easier. All right, then there's the validation rule and validation text. Okay, so validation rule is a rule we set up for obvious mistakes. And suppose we had, we'll get to a field like GPA. You can't have a GPA of 100. You also can't have a GPA of a -1. So it just gives us control over validating what people put in a GPA field. Okay? And the validation text is the error message you want to be displayed if they violate the rule. So you create your own way of validating the different data, and then you put the error message in there if they get it wrong. All right, excuse me. And then these next three, and I'll stop with these next three. And these next three kind of go together. Required and allow zero length. I haven't quite figured out what the difference is. If it's a required field, that means you have to have something in it. If it's zero length, that means you can leave it empty. So if one is true, the other one needs to be false. I have never seen any case where both can be yes or both can be no. And I don't know why they need both. I don't know. I just don't know. Allow zero length. So no for that. And then the last one I'm going to talk about here is indexed. And there are three possibilities for indexed. Most fields will not be indexed because they just don't need to. Usually if you're going to do a lot of searching or sorting on a particular field, you index it.
What does that mean, indexed?
It's just a quicker way of finding data. Okay?
It's almost like putting it like to the RAM rolls on the computer.
No, what it does is it sets up, if you're going to index something, it will sort, it'll create like a little separate file almost. There you have, the field is sorted, and then you have the location of where each one of them is found. It's, if we were computer science majors taking a database course, we would get into indexing and hashing algorithms and all that stuff. We're not going there. But index just means, it makes it a more efficient way to find the records you're looking for. That's what that does. So you can have it not indexed. You can have it indexed with duplicates okay, or indexed with no duplicates. And since this student ID field, am I going to allow duplicate values for student ID?
No.
No, everyone's going to be unique. So this one will say yes, no duplicates. All right, so that's our first field. And, ooh, I took off my primary key. Why did you do that? All right, so anyway, well, that's good. I'll get to do it again anyway. So now my student ID is going to be my primary key for this table. So I just select the field and then hit the key right up here, and it puts a little gold key right on the left margin of the field. All right, so I'm going to do these next few kind of quickly. First name. Name, got to spell name right. First name. Short text, that's fine. Make it maybe 15 characters. No format, no input mask. Caption, first space name. No default value. I mean, if most of your people who are applying were named Fred, then you put Fred in here. But since, that's not going to happen, everybody's different.
If you leave the caption blank, it'll put the original field name, right?
Yes. If you leave the caption blank, it'll use. And if you have a, GPA, for an example, GPA, and that's your name of your field, you can just use that as you want. All right, and no, not indexed. Don't need it. All right. Middle initial. Short text. 1. 1, not 21. 1. Caption. What would caption be for middle initial?
Middle name?
Or you look at a form, right? And you see these boxes. There's a box for your first name, box for your middle initial, box for your last name, and above it you have first. What do they put for middle initial?
I don't know, M?
Or MI?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a space between middle space initial. It could be just, especially since the box is kind of small, having middle initial over the top of it might be a little bit awkward. So capital M, capital I. And last name, oops, short text, let's make it 25 just for kicks. Caption, last space name. And all that other stuff I'm not going to do. All right, so now I'm going to do major. Short text, I don't know, maybe 50 because I don't know. But now major is a single word. And so I can just leave it without a caption and it'll work just fine. It'll look just like that. And last but not least, GPA. I'll do another one too. GPA is going to be a number. Now we get a different set of field properties for numbers. So it's not going to be an integer, because an integer doesn't have any decimal places. So there's a single and a double basically have decimal places. Double is for like much larger numbers. But you can use double, so, you know, not a problem. Or decimal, doesn't matter. All right, so then my format, do I have a format for this? Yes, I do. For output, I'm going to say my format should be general number. We'll just do it like that. Decimal places. For GPA, how many decimal places does a GPA have nowadays?
Two now.
Two?
It's two now.
All right, so we make it 2 decimal places. Input mask, I'm going to leave that.
Save the table. If you click on input mask, makes you save the table.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't think they have one for GPA. Input mask only works with text and date fields. Isn't that funny? Okay. Caption, I'm just going to leave GPA as the thing. Default value. What would be the default value for somebody's GPA?
2.0.
2.0? Well, okay with that. 2.0. Now, validation rule. Here's how you do this. You say greater than or equal to 0.0 and less than or equal to 4.0. We still have 4.0 is still perfect, right?
Yes.
Okay. Look at some high schools have a 5.0.
I've seen some of the 6.2.
Why do we have to go bigger? Why do we have to make bigger numbers? You know, 0 to 4 works just fine. All right, validation rule. So that's the rule. It has, whatever we put in this field has to be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 4. Good. Okay. Now the validation text is going to be the error message that we put in there. Okay, and I don't care if you want to call them stupid or knucklehead or whatever you want. Go ahead, have fun with it. But a good error message, the last thing you should tell them is what you're expecting. You know, just don't say, "Hey dummy, you messed up." You know, you're going to say, you can say, "Hey dummy, grade point averages must be between 0 and 4," so they know, because that way, if they mess it up more than once, it's their own fault. But if you don't give them a good explanation of what they did wrong, they're just guessing, and they'll keep guessing wrong over and over again. So I'm going to say, "Hey, dummy, GPA must be between 0 and 4." Okay, so I had fun making fun of their intelligence and all that good stuff, but in the end I told them what the values needed to be. Must be between 0 and 4. Does that make sense? Let's do one date field, just something different. Birthday. That's a date time field. So format. So what do we want the format to look like when we're printing it out? Now I can have a different output format than input format, and let's just do that just for demonstration. I'm going to use long date for the output. Then it'll actually have the day of the week in it. But in the input mask, save the table. There are several input masks for date and time that have already been created. I kind of like this medium date one, so I'm just going to go with that. You could do short date and whatever you want. So medium date, so I select that, and then I can try it out. See, there's a little try it window. So the medium date works this way. does the day of the month, the 3-letter month abbreviation, and then the 2-digit day of the year. 2-digit year. So I could go 15 JUN 65. Okay? And that will give me that, it'll put it in there. Notice I didn't have to hit shift for the J and U and N, whatever. It just automatically does it. So when I'm satisfied that's the one I want, I hit finish, and it puts those codes in there for my birthday. All right, what would be a good caption for birthday?
I got a question.
Sure.
When I click next, it says input mask wizard. Do you want to change the input mask? And then play that.
No, you don't want to change the mask.
And it says, what placeholder character do you want?
Oh, you can choose the placeholder you want. Yeah, if you want to use a pound sign or an underscore or anything. Okay. Now, for birthday, what would be a good caption? What do you usually see on a screen?
DLB.
DLB, right? So capital D, capital O, capital B, date of birth. Default value, no. And validation rule, validation text. Your birthday is when your birthday is. You could do some stuff with date arithmetic to make sure that they don't put sometime in the future or sometime 150 years ago or whatever, but I'm not going to go into that. All right, so that's a short example of a table, right? So when you get to fields defined, change your view back, you must save the table, yeah. Change your view back to what we call data sheet view. This allows us to put in information, okay? Notice, look at what it says, student ID with a space in it, first name with a space in it, MI for middle initial, last name with a space in it, DOB for date of birth, okay? So, U 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 7, 8, whatever. Joe, M, Smith, major, biology, GPA, .65. So the 2 is in there already, but it'll let me change it. Birthday. All right, so now 15. See how my input mask comes up? JUN66. Now when you put this, you fill out these fields, you notice there's no file save thing like you would in Microsoft Word or Excel, or even PowerPoint for that matter. As soon as you leave this record, it will save it automatically. You notice over here on the left there's this pencil, which means that you are changing, you are writing to this record, but it hasn't been saved yet. As soon as you leave this record, like I go to the next record, then it saves it automatically. Make sense? And then we keep on going from there. Any questions on basics of building a table? We good?
Mayor Key, we didn't set it to auto itself, right? We were going to auto.
No, I didn't set it to auto.
Okay, because we'd have to change the data type at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to close this database. I'm going to open up another one. Yeah, save it. Open up computer. Let's see. I think this tutorial one is one we're going to use later in the course. I'll open that. Oh, yeah. All right, now this is a database, and I think we use this later on in the course for a homework example. All right, so now I have, this one has 4 tables. I have courses, professor, schedule, and student. So not only I relate professors to courses, I can relate student to schedule and courses to schedule. So there's actually an extra layer in there. Let's look at what the student table looks like in this. So if I open this, all right, I've got all kinds of people in there. Let's look at this. Notice I have the class that they're in. I have a lookup wizard for that. They're either freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. What's the benefit of doing it this way rather than just letting them type in freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior?
Can't make mistakes.
Can't make mistakes. You know, some people may not know how to spell sophomore. And that's okay, but they sure can pick it from a list. And it saves time. Saves time.
So that's the lookup tool that you're speaking about?
The lookup wizard, yep, that's what that is. All right?
That other databases that you've created, the table that you created? You click the lookup wizard and put the 4 different options in.
You can do it 2 ways. You can put in the 4 options, or you can create a table and put them in that. By having the table is better if the list is subject to change. But until we come up with a different class other than freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and there's only 4 of them, you can kind of say, well, I'll just type them in. And then it's kind of static. You don't have to worry about it. But if you had, majors, as their major, if you had a list, I don't think I did it that way in here. No, I didn't do it that way. You could have done a lookup wizard with every possible major on campus, and then once in a while, some programs get canceled. Not enough students for it to keep them alive, so they just get taken out of the system. So you could have that would be a good candidate for a table, because then you could add new majors or take majors out depending on what happens.
If their major changes, if you erase it from the other table, will it still stay there? So let's say you guys have nutrition as a major here, and you have a table with 100 majors already made, and you take nutrition out that table over there. Does it automatically make that blank, or what will happen at that point?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if Access leaves it until you edit that record. If you edit that field, it would probably make you pick another one. But I don't think it seeks out all the nutrition majors and makes them blank. I don't think Access is that sophisticated. But it'd be a good test to try. Good test to try. All right, so here's GPA. Look, I mean, GPA. I did this GPA with 3 decimal places. So what? And you look over here, I have probation and U.S. citizen. So if somebody's on academic probation, they can be checked on or checked off. Okay? Are they a U.S. citizen? Checked on or checked off. Total credits earned, and so on. So you see, this would take a while to blow this out to this level. But you can do it by trial and error. Notice also for my middle initial, it doesn't allow me to make it lowercase. Why would it do that? Why? Well, the middle initials should be capitalized, right? So you can actually restrict it. So if I go in here into my datasheet view, look at middle initial, there I went and created an input mask for middle initial to make it uppercase. That greater than sign says make everything uppercase. The question mark is making one character, but that doesn't have to be a character, it can be optional, so it can be blank. So if somebody doesn't have a middle name, you can leave it blank.
How do you find out more about input math?
Come over here, hit this little pill. There's a whole list of input masks. You want to create a new one? You can do it. Edit the list. Create a new input mask. Hit this thing here to create a new blank record. Now, I don't know. I'm trying to think of one I could do.
Just my question, how did you know that to do the greater than the question mark and then, what is that, the semicolon?
Oh,
How did you know to do that?
well, here's what I did. Like let me go to this. Where's the one for middle initial? I didn't create that one, in the system. Oh, all right. Here's how it works. If you go under Help, this is one of the few places where Microsoft Help actually does help. All right, so if you come in, characters that define input mask, it gives you a whole list of them. So for each character, if I have a 0 in my mask, that means the user must enter a digit 0 to 9. If it's a 9 in that spot, the user can enter a digit, but they can also leave it blank. # is can enter a digit, space, plus or minus sign. If skipped, access enters a blank space. L is for a letter, must be a letter. Question mark is can be a letter, but can be blank. So you have a whole bunch of these things. A is letter or digit. Ampersand is for character or space. C is for characters or spaces. Can enter a characters or spaces. And you get these things. Greater than converts all characters that follow to uppercase. Less than converts to lowercase. So in that the date input mask that I used, when I had JUN, it made the J capital and the UN lowercase without me having to do anything to it. So they use these greater than and less than to make those characters that way.
Are them two semicolons after the question mark and then a hyphen? By your input mask
Here?
section?
Decimal and thousands placeholder, so you have like the commas in there.
Your input mask record at the bottom?
Date time separators, depends on your original settings. So it kind of inserts that stuff for you when you put the
Oh, okay.
choose your characters. But this is how you do it. You go in there and you hit Help, and then you select characters that define input masks in Access databases, and it lets you create them. All right. Now let me go and look at something you guys will be doing, if not this week, very soon. Relationships. All right, see, in my diagram over here, I draw lines between the boxes, and they create the relationships, so we can see them. And I draw them that way on purpose, because when you get to your relationship screen in Access, it looks just like that. And I'm gonna delete all this and recreate it. All right, so if I get rid of here, delete that relationship. Yeah. Oh, I guess I can't because I got data already in there. Oh, let me do that one. Oh, that's why. Okay. Let me close it. Close that table. Now do it. All right. So then I get over here, here. When you get to this screen, for the first time. You get, where is it? Oh, relationship. Show table. All right, you come up, when it first comes up, this is what you see. The first time you establish your relationships. So here's the order in which you do things. You define the tables, what fields go into the tables. Then you put some data in there. And sometimes when you're putting the data in there, it may cause you to rethink how your table is defined, and you can make changes to the structure of the table. Maybe you make the fields wider, maybe you put an input mask in, maybe you put some validation, whatever. And then once you get all your tables defined, the next thing you do is set up the relationships between them. And then you can do that in this screen right here. So what I would do is this. If you click on each table in the list and add them to this workspace, just add them. You can click on all of them and then just say add them all independently.
Click on relationships tab.
Yeah. All right, so then I close that. Now what I usually like to do is I like to expand these so I can see all the fields in each one of these things. Now, all right, so I have a student there, and let's rearrange these things. And sometimes you can just move them around to make them a little easier to read. Now, let's do this one here that we did on the board. We did student ID related to schedule. Okay, the way that works is this. The easiest way to do it, see my student ID, which is my primary key. Then I have a student ID in my schedule. So if I click on this here and drag it over here and drop it, don't just drop it in the box, drop it right on top of the field you want. And you get this sort of are you sure window comes up. And what this says is, in the table student, the field student ID related to the table schedule, to the student ID table over there, and it's a one-to-many relationship. And that's what we said last time, is that we want to break the many-to-many relationship into one-to-many relationships. Now, Access knows that since this is a primary key over here, that this is the one side and this is the many side. It's not, student ID by itself is not a primary key over here, but it is over here. So
On this one, you have two stars, so the both of them are not primary keys on this one? Only course IDs are primary key on this one right on schedule?
the way I have it here is that the combination of the two makes a primary key, but one by itself does not. Okay? And I probably should, the way I did it over here was I created a separate ID for the schedule table.
So each table has their own primary key at first.
Right, they all have their own primary key. Then I just say create this relationship. Then I do the same thing with courses. My course ID, right? I click on it, I drag it, I come over here on the course ID, and I drop it. And it says the table courses, the field course ID, related to the table schedule, also the table, the course ID field, and then I create the relationship. I hit the create button. All right? So now the last one I have is my professor's table should be related to courses because professors teach courses, right? So I have my professor ID, which is very similar to your student ID. I click on that, I drag it, and I drop it onto the professor ID field in courses. It says the table professor ID related to the table courses by the field professor ID over there. And then I create that relationship.
Doesn't matter which way you drag it?
No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which way you drag it. But what you should have when you're done is that every table should be connected to at least one other table. Now, professor and student are related indirectly, because professor to course to schedule to student, I can get there. Okay? But professor doesn't have a direct relationship. I don't have a line going from professor to student. You see how that works? So as long as they're all connected somehow, and I can get to each one, then everything's cool.
If you double click on student ID, it'll pop up all the information for us. Student ID, its course ID, its grades, correct?
No. This is just the relationship.
I'm talking about when you go into the form itself. If you want to double click on it, it should pop up the other table, right? The one that is scheduled table, right?
If you're going to do a query,
Yes.
yeah, it would bring up all the records that are related to your student. How we doing? Getting it?
Yeah.
All right, it's still early yet, but then when you're done, save layout, and you're done. So that gets you, this is, up to this point is the hard, I don't say hardest, it's not really hard, but you've done most of the work when you get to this point. You got tables, you got some records in your tables, and then you've established your relationships. That's a good chunk of it. You're most of the way there. The queries and forms and that stuff is kind of easy stuff.
So this would, I know this core relationships, which basically, we're basically looking at the book, the relations are a two-dimensional table.
Mhm.
So what does it exactly do? I understand that the word is informs relationships, but what is it? What does that relationship do? So I guess when we're either on a form or if we're on the design view or the data sheet view, how does this help us by forming this relationship?
Okay. When I have if I look up a student, if I have your student ID number and then I type it into a system, how many students should come up?
One.
One. So, and your information should be stored in exactly one place, right?
Yes.
But if you take this course and two other courses, well then you're attached to multiple courses, right? So how do I get that without duplicating, storing your name and your major and your GPA in 100 different places? The way I do that is I take your student ID number and I relate it to the student ID number in the schedule so that when I look at schedule, that's the schedule table. Okay, so all I have that repeats, so look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is duplicated. It's here, it's down here, 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 okay? And business 3100 is here, here, and down here, okay? But I don't know who the professor is and I don't know who the student is. I find that by using this student ID to trace back to find out the student is Jim Smith. That's what it does. So I store Jim's name once, but because of the way I'm using his ID number, I have access to Jim from a variety of sources. So in other words, Jim's taken a business course, he's taken an art course, a biology course, an English course, and so because he's doing that, I have access to the rest of his information. That make sense? That's what the relationships do for us. Now, if I do student grade report, here's Mary's name. It shows up 4 times in the grade report. Her name in the student table, where's Mary? Right here, only shows up once. How does that happen? Well, because in the grade report, her student ID is matched up with all these courses. So her student ID, it looks up her first name and last name. That's what it does. We'll get better at it as we go along. It'll get clearer as you do it more. Any questions?
On the SQL, what's the main difference between the Oracle Database Express Edition and the Oracle MySQL 5.6 Community?
I don't know.
Both databases, or is one a application and one's a database, or is one's an enterprise and one's a personal? Because they keep referencing them inside the book.
What they're doing, all they're doing is they're just giving you, they're showing you a concept, right? And then we're seeing how it works in Access. They say, well, it doesn't just apply to Access, it applies to other types of databases like Oracle or whatever, and they're just showing you other examples, that's all it is. They're all databases.
And they all use different type of SQL or MySQL or...
They all use the same SQL code. You write a SQL command in Access, you copy that and paste it into an Oracle database, it should work exactly the same.
Or I guess we're still choosing MySQL.
Yeah, MySQL is for like internet databases on websites.
Is it a different type of code, or is it still SQL?
Still SQL. It just works different. You still write in the same commands, but instead of using a database that's on your computer, it's a database that's on a server, and you're communicating with it from somewhere else.
Okay.
That's all it is.
There's more database administration, right? Something like nature there?
Yeah, but it's more just using SQL to access it from a different. So it's instead of accessing a database that sits on my computer, I'm accessing a database that sits out there on a server.
Gotcha.
And MySQL, you send a SQL command to that server, it grabs all those records, assembles the query, and then shoots it back to you so you can view it on your computer.
Gotcha.
That's how it works.